What is an average day like at a tough teen boot camp, behavior modification school, wilderness camp? That's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. Now, obviously, I think this is going to vary from facility to facility. There's many different types of facilities. Many are run by different companies. Some might be run well, might have decent education, good counseling. Others are going to be run terribly and are going to abuse and neglect kids. So it is going to vary widely. Obviously, you have some like boarding schools that are more like a traditional boarding school. You have some facilities that are more focused on like counseling. You have some kind of outdoor wilderness camps, wilderness boot camps where there's almost no schooling aspect and it's just all kind of wilderness activities. I was in the WASP program, so that stands for Worldwide Association of Specialty Schools. They ran schools in Montana, Utah, Mexico, like Fiji or the Pacific Islands, Jamaica, and I think there's others across the U.S. as well. I don't know if WASP is still around. I imagine they maybe changed their name. They got a lot of bad press a few years back. I think one of the Pullman brothers or somebody associated with WASP was donating a lot of money to the Mitt Romney campaign, and that kind of really got in the headlines. Also, a lot of WASP schools have been shut down, so I wouldn't be surprised if they want to kind of disassociate themselves from that name. But I'll just kind of give you guys a kind of a quick run through of what a day in the life is like at the WASP schools that I was at. So we lived in these kind of like bunkhouse type things, log cabin bunkhouses. There were 2 stories. Each floor basically was divided into 2 parts with a dividing door in the middle. You essentially lived with quote unquote a family. The entire room you lived in was just a big open room. There were bunk beds around the perimeter of the room. Everybody had one laundry basket full of clothes and things that they could own that went under the bunk bed. And then there was a bathroom, kind of a community bathroom that maybe had 3-4 toilets, and I don't know, maybe 5 showers, something like that. And that's where we lived. So we would wake up probably sometime between 5 and 6 in the morning. I don't remember exactly. And you brush your teeth. Half the people would take the shower. We kind of had showers split into half of the people you lived with would take a shower at night. The other half would take a shower in the morning. But people would take their showers. You'd clean up the room. Somebody would vacuum. Once everybody was kind of done with their hygiene stuff, it was basically chores. So after everyone was done, showering, brushing their teeth and everything, you would have to clean everything. We used toothbrushes to clean the sinks, to clean the toilets. Everything had to be sparkling clean, and then there would be an inspection. If the inspection was suitable, you'd go about your day. If it wasn't, you guys would have to clean all over again. Now, our shoes were kept in a lockbox. So when it got time to leave in the morning to go to either like calisthenics, school, or breakfast, depending on which family you were in. Not everybody could fit in the cafeteria at one time. So some people went to breakfast first, some people went to school first, and some people went to this big open kind of lodge room and did like calisthenics and kind of morning exercises. But once everybody was ready to start their day and the place was cleaned in an acceptable way, they get your shoes out of the lockbox. You guys would line up by the door, and you guys would leave and go do whatever you did. I believe kind of how my day was normally scheduled. We would go to, I don't even know what you want to call it, like community lodge type thing. It was basically a big open room, and we would do like morning calisthenics there. So it would be jumping jacks, stretches, push-ups. You'd have to hold somebody's feet, and they'd have to do like dips along the wall. We'd have like, I think maybe a half hour to an hour of morning exercises. And then after that, I believe we would go to breakfast next. So breakfast, you maybe ate with like 1 or 2 other quote unquote families or groups. How breakfast worked, you would kind of go through like a cafeteria line, kind of like you might see in like a prison movie. People serve you your food. A typical breakfast, if I'm not mistaken, it would either be like boring cereal, like a Raisin Bran or something like that. Probably not even Raisin Bran, probably worse than Raisin Bran. But it would either be cereal, or a lot of times we would eat farina, which is like cream of wheat. Now, unless you were level 3, which you had to have so many points to get to level 3, unless you were level 3, you would not get any condiments. So you would just have plain cream of wheat. No brown sugar, no honey, nothing in it. You also were not allowed to have juice unless you were level 3. So you just get water if you weren't level 3 as well. So we would, and I think you maybe gotten a banana or an orange or something like that. So you would eat your breakfast. After breakfast, we'd have to clean up the tables. We would line up to basically be searched before we left the cafeteria. And I should mention that all throughout breakfast, they're playing like Zig Ziglar self-help tapes. You were not allowed to talk, and you were not allowed to share food. So if I'm not going to eat my banana, I'm not allowed to give it to anybody else, or I would get like a cat 2 and lose 25 points. You're also not allowed to leave the cafeteria with any food. You'd also get searched to make sure you don't have food, because if you have food, you might try to run away. So after breakfast, we would go to school. Now, everywhere you go, you're lining up in single file lines. They got to kind of make sure everybody's there, and then you move out. Now, there were girls who lived on the facility at Spring Creek Lodge. You really had little to no interaction with them, but occasionally you might pass a group of girls if they're going to the cafeteria and you're going to class or something like that. If that were to happen, the quote-unquote family leader, your guard, your staff, whatever you want to call them, will say something like heads down to the left, and everybody in your group who's in a straight line has to look down and to the left. The girls will be told to look down and to the right, so you're not allowed to look at each other. I mean, if you want to fart, you have to ask permission to get out of line and fart. We would then go to school. So you'd line up, you'd go to school. School wasn't a traditional school. Obviously, you have kids of like all ages from like 13 to 18. Everyone's working on different things. So it's basically like correspondence. There is a teacher, I think, because legally they probably have to have a teacher. But the teacher basically would just grade your tests when you had to take tests. So basically how it worked, you got some rickety torn up textbook from ages ago. You would kind of have to teach yourself a chapter, and then you would go up to the teacher and get a test. You would take the test. If you didn't get, at least 80% or whatever, you would just have to continue taking the test over and over and over. And that was basically school. Everybody was on their own program. Everybody was doing their own thing. There was no lesson plans. There was no teacher teaching you anything. It was basically teach yourself. Now, throughout the day, like you'd go to school for an hour, then you leave and go do something else, and you come back to school again. I think we even had school after dinner. And so, it's kind of weird, like, Montana in the wintertime, it gets dark really early too. So it was always really weird kind of having like the glow of like a high pressure sodium light outside the classroom and, going to your last class at like 7 o'clock. It's just, normally you're used to, you're out of school by 3:30 or 3:25 or something like that. So it was always kind of weird going to school when it was dark out and going to school at night. But after school, you would then go to, what would we do? I think maybe then we'd go back to our bunkhouse or our room, and you'd have like a group session every day. So that's, I think maybe if there's any announcements, you would go over those. It was kind of like if there was any beef that needed to be settled amongst everybody who lived in the room, you would do that. There was kind of like a little bit of a counseling session. I don't really remember what we talked about or what that was like. And then you might go back to school for another hour. And then you go do like another calisthenics, and then it'd be time for lunch. So you'd go to the cafeteria thing all over again. For lunch, I think it would normally be like a, kind of like a bologna sandwich or something like that. Bologna sandwich, peanut butter and jelly sandwich, something like that. And maybe a piece of fruit. After lunch, everybody gets searched. You wind up leaving lunch. I think maybe you go do another calisthenics. Then we go to class again. Then I think there was like a whole community-wide thing where we all met in that kind of like big lodge room gymnasium thing. And we would either listen to self-help tapes, they do some motivation type stuff, and then it would be back to school. I'm trying to kind of go through my day. What would we do after that? I think then there might have been kind of like a PE kind of period. We used to play a game called British Bulldog. I think eventually they kind of outlawed that because too many people were getting hurt and we'd be fighting and stuff. But British Bulldog is basically one person stands in the middle of the room and everybody else stands at an end of the room. Now, on some count, everybody tries to charge across and make it to the other side of the room, and the British Bulldog is the guy in the center, and he would try to tackle somebody. Now, if he manages to tackle somebody, now he and that person he tackled are now two British Bulldogs. So now everyone has to run across again, but now you have two people trying to tackle everyone. We'll assume that they each tackle somebody, so you have 2 good turns to 4. So now you have 4 people trying to tackle the people running across, and eventually at the end, there's one person left who has to try to run across a room against 15 guys who are trying to tackle him or block him. So we used to play that game all the time, and then eventually, I think someone wound up breaking their leg or something like that. So that game kind of wound up coming to an end, and then it kind of went back to calisthenics or some safer games. After that, we'd have school again, then dinner. Dinner kind of same thing. I'm trying to think of what we used to eat for dinner. I know one day you might get spaghetti and a piece of garlic bread. That was one of the better days. When they'd be trying to punish us or they were upset with us, they'd give you liver and onions. Liver and onions, I think, on maybe a little bit of rice. That was terrible. Nobody would eat it. I'm trying to think what other meals. There might be one time in the summertime if like parents were visiting and they might give you like hamburgers or something to act like they're nice and actually give a shit. Really the only meal that sticks out to me is spaghetti and liver and onions. I'm trying to think what else we had. Spaghetti, liver and onions. It's a lot of like carb heavy stuff. I think maybe like some like really bad tasting like scallop potatoes and a slice of turkey or something like that. Basically like cafeteria lunch food type stuff. After dinner, I think we'd have one more session of school. At that point, you'd go back to the cabins. Everybody would use the bathroom, take their showers, brush their teeth. And then we'd have to do the chores, right? We'd have to clean everything up with the toothbrushes. And then there'd normally be anywhere from a half hour to an hour at the end of the evening. That was just kind of downtime before bed. So you could write a letter home to your parents. You could read a book. We used to play a lot of dominoes or play cards, play checkers, things like that. A lot of people would read. Some people just kind of sit around and and kind of talk and shoot the shit. And then it was bedtime, and the lights would go off. Everybody would return to their bunk beds around a room until the next day when you did it all over again. Now, there was definitely kind of a feeling of Groundhog Day. I mean, I think, if I remember correctly, I think we went to school and basically kind of kept up the same routine on Saturdays as well. So 6 days a week, it's just like the same thing over and over and over and over. You got to keep in mind, right? There's no TV, there's no radio. You're not seeing your family. You don't have any friends. It's just going through this routine over and over and over again. And Sundays was the one day that was kind of a day of rest, so to speak. So Sundays, I think you maybe got to sleep in a little bit later. Maybe you got to sleep until 7. You'd either go do your like calisthenics or you'd go to breakfast. You'd do kind of a deep cleaning of the room and the bathrooms on Sunday. Breakfast on weekends sometimes was not good, but was actually like a hot breakfast. You might get, I'm trying to think what they used to give us. You might get like pancakes or, it was like powdered eggs. It wasn't great, but you might get like scrambled eggs or pancakes. Sometimes if they gave you cream of wheat or oatmeal, you might get a muffin. What are they called? Like those like Otis Spunkermeyer muffins, like a banana nut muffin or a blueberry muffin or wheat muffin or something like that, and a piece of fruit. So I would say you ate the best on Sunday mornings. On rare occasions, you might get biscuits and gravy. Now, the biscuits and gravy wasn't good, but at least it was not cream of wheat, so that was always kind of a treat. And it's basically what your average day was like. But like I said, Sundays was one day that was a little bit different. After breakfast, I think I don't know if you had to go back and clean again, but there was basically it was kind of a movie day. So we would go to the classrooms, and I think we maybe watched 2 movies throughout the day. So we would watch a movie. I'm trying to think of what we used to watch. One movie that we used to watch a lot that really kind of sticks in my head is Goonies. Goonies was a movie we watched a lot. I think everything had to be like PG or at the most PG-13 because, A, this place is run by Mormons, and B, they don't want us, seeing any sex or violence or whatever else. So, yeah, I remember Goonies, maybe something like the Great Outdoors or something like that with John Candy. Kind of like kids, kind of like 80s, 90s movies type stuff. Then you'd have lunch, You get to watch another movie in the afternoon. It was always kind of a fight amongst your family of what movie to watch. I think there was like a box, like a moving box full of, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 movies, VHS tapes actually. And that's basically what we could choose from. So you tended to kind of watch the same movies over and over and over again, but at least you got to watch movies. And everyone on Sundays would wear their sweatpants and a hoodie. It was a little bit more relaxed. It was one day where you just weren't constantly on the move with school and calisthenics and everything else all day long. You do lunch, you watch your second movie of the day, and then I think that kind of wrapped up. I think maybe you go back, do your showering, clean and everything, have your little bit of downtime, and then it was kind of back to the normal week. But that was basically what an average day in the life was like at Spring Creek Lodge back in probably late 90s, early 2000s. So if you spent any time in a teen boot camp, a teen behavior modification school, I'd love to hear kind of what your experience was like, what your days were like. Go ahead and drop a comment down below. Tell us about it. If you guys enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, click that subscribe button down below if you want to see or hear more content like this. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next video.